У рамках 4-го Українського жіночого конгресу ми розпочинаємо засідання дискусійної платформи «Регіональна політика та децентралізація. Яка перспектива для гендерної рівності?». І перед тим, як представити наших гостей, у мене буквально кілька слів для того, щоб пояснити нашим глядачам, чому питання дотримання гендерної рівності набуло такої актуальності через децентралізацію. Бо в ході реформи громади отримали
communities have received a lot of responsibilities, and they try to respond to any needs of the men and women. And why is this important, really? Because the communities have to do gender analysis. They have to think of the accessibility of gender budgets in order to take into consideration the peculiarities of men and women while considering the employment policies, and while determining any gaps in terms of the position of women on the labor market, as this would be able to change the lives of men and women, boys and girls. The decisions made locally have an impact on all spheres of life, on health, economic sphere, and many others. So we'll start. Our platform will be quite interesting, quite peculiar, because we'll have people in Lviv and Mariupol who will join us. We'll have Antin from Lviv. So, how do you hear me?
І бачимо не гірше.
Yes, we can hear you, and we can even see you. And in Mariupol, we have Anna Dorohova, a journalist from the Mariupol television station. So, how do you hear us?
Доброго дня, колеги. Дуже добре вас чуємо.
Hello. Good afternoon, colleagues. We can hear you loud and clear. And in our studio in Kyiv, we have Marina Poroshenko, the MP of the Kyiv City Council. We have Evgenia Kuleba, the member of Kyiv City Council. And we have Hennady Zubko, the Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine in 2014-2019. Now I'd like to pass the floor to our moderators to represent their guests in the studio, so please.
Отже, у Львівській студії важливі і кваліфіковані учасники. Михайло Цимбалюк.
Experts Mikhailo Tsembaluk, member of Parliament of Ukraine. We have Natalia Tabinska, which is the co-owner and the chairwoman of the Agricultural Cooperative. And we have Yevgenia Bardyak, which is the member of the Ivano-Frankivsk Regional Council. So, Volodymyr, you have the floor. Anna, whom do you have in your studio? Thank you, colleague. And our city is absolutely happy to participate in the Women's Congress, and we have invited a number of experts to discuss this topic. Vadim Boychenko, the city mayor of Mariupol. We also have Olha Pikula, the head of Mariupol City Center for Support and Development of the Small and Medium Businesses. And we're looking forward to the start of this discussion, and we return the floor to you, colleagues. So, thank you. Let's start our discussion platform. And we have a video from Mayor of a city in Ontario in Canada. So I'm asking our editors to prepare the video.
Dobrý den. Greetings from Canada. My name is Joanne Vanderheyden, and I am the mayor of the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc and first vice president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities represents 2,000 municipalities and 90% of the population of Canada. There are many distinguished guests and speakers participating today at the 4th Ukrainian Women's Congress, and among them my fellow mayors and councillors who have just been elected to represent cities and towns across Ukraine. I know Ukraine has recently gone from having 11,000 to 1,470 municipalities. This is something we're familiar with in Canada. Many of our communities have gone through amalgamation. It is indeed quite a transformation. But another transformation is also happening, one that we must acknowledge and celebrate. For the first time in the history of Ukraine, approximately 30% of local councillors will be women. Canada has been a long-standing supporter of Ukraine, particularly in the area of governance, decentralization reform, and transforming the municipal sector. FCM has worked in Ukraine for over 10 years through the MLED and Pledge projects, promoting principles of good governance, and particularly the political and economic empowerment of women leaders. Our local elected officials and experts have been sharing their knowledge with municipal leaders in 28 Ukrainian cities, as well as within partnership with the Association of Ukrainian Cities. We're very proud of our efforts and the great working relationship we have in the Ukraine. FCM's commitment to supporting women's leadership and representation is unwavering, nationally and internationally. In Canada, we have committed to working towards parity. This means we are striving to achieve 40 to 60% representation of women on local councils by supporting women who are or want to become candidates. We understand lived experiences are the most valuable experiences. The needs and interests of the 50% of our citizens must be represented at the decision-making tables. To that end, our program towards parity in municipal politics launched 2 new tools that outline strategies to achieve parity. Our pan-Canadian framework, which we call Run, Win, Lead, and our Knowledge Hub, a collection of more than 100 resources. Both tools aim to support women from when they first start thinking about running for office right through to when they are elected and become role models for peers and the next generation. We are very fortunate to have great support and valuable partnerships in Canada and internationally in our work to promote gender equity, but there's still a lot of work to be done for all of us. We are very fortunate to have great support and valuable partnerships in Canada and internationally in our work to promote gender equity, but there's still a lot of work to be done for all of us. FCM is delighted to be supporting the Ukrainian Women's Congress and its platform for 4 years, and we are hoping that our shared best practices and networks will lead to more equality, more parity, and more empowerment of women in Ukraine. Dakuyu.
Well, thank you. That was the mayor from Canada, John Vanderheyden. So let's pass the floor to some of our mayors and let's hear what they're thinking about the gender equality. And we have one of the mayors who's with us. So, Anna, you have the floor. So, Mr. Vadim Sergeyevich, the first question. You asked the mayor, how do you assess the results of the local elections? Were there equal opportunities for men and women in the election process? And what are the results of the election process for the city council and some of the prospects for gender equality in our city? Well, good afternoon. Well, today we see a lot of good examples of gender equality and balance. We supported all of the legislative initiatives regarding the distribution of the women and men representing in the local council. We have already compiled a list of members in the local council, and we have this 60 to 40 balance between men and women. We have 30% women participating in the local council, and this is the good example. And the other good example is that for the first time in the history of Mariupol, a woman, Ksenia Sukhova, was elected as the secretary of the local council. She was working as the deputy mayor for many years, and she was dealing with the social areas and medical support. And really, under her leadership, we heard a lot of changes. We've created and established a new cardiological center. She paid special attention to the health of women and children. She started new developments in the health and surgery in other spheres for Mariupol. We've established a new child health center, and even some people could not even believe that we've managed to do that. And she was the one to lead the way for Mariupol, and amidst the epidemics, she started a working group. She conducted a lot of working meetings, and she led the drafting process of a special mechanism to counter the pandemics. And now, after 8 months of this pandemics, we're successful in dealing with this challenge. We look at the analytics from our medical service, and we can see that only 42 of our capacities have been filled, and we can see the reduction in the number of days that are spent at hospital. We can see that 50% of our hospital beds are supported with oxygen apparatus, and we've managed to reduce the time that a person is spending in the hospital, so we can have a new recreational process. And really, Ksenia Sukhova took the leading position in that area, and as the result, most of the deputies of the city council supported her appointment to the position of the speaker, and she's representing the political party servants to the people. And the same situation is for Olha Vikula, because she's the person who have a lot of experience starting from the development of the business, the establishment of a business environment, and she indeed is creating the business environment. We have started the first MSB sector in the east of Ukraine, and we can see that it's very effective. We have a special program by the one that is produced in Mariupol, and with the assistance of our Canadian partners and other partners, we have received new tools, and now the infrastructure and business environment is developing. We can create new possibilities for the economy of the city, and we can see that women in leadership is becoming a foundation for the development of economy in Ukraine. And let's have a more discussion on COVID. And you're saying that the city is coping with the challenges, but have we supported properly on the needs of the women and other population in terms of the health issues, in terms of many other forms of support? Well, our position was that we were trying to take decisions straightforward without any directives from the center, really, because, of course, we have most of our health workers as the women. We've introduced certain motivation packages for the women serving in the health industry, and I would like to say that we didn't have any mass dismissals, or we don't have too many health workers leaving their positions. So really, this is the joint work of the city Council that try to ensure we have masks, we have everything, we have the quarantining process, we have certain procedures to be complied by the doctors and medical workers. And so we have a result today, but it's very important for us not to stop the educational process. Our kindergartens and schools are working from the 1st of June, and we don't see any excessive increase of COVID cases. We've heard the comments from the school professors from many other areas, and once again we have a woman in the lead on that area. So we've done everything we could to ensure the safety in the kindergarten. So we're the first city to provide thermometers, electronic thermometers for the kindergartens, so that we would be able to measure the temperature for these 8,000 kids that were attending kindergartens. We wanted to make sure we have safety in our kindergartens and schools. And after a small holidays, we have reestablished the whole educational process. So we're trying to take into consideration all the recommendations we receive, and we try to respond properly and to take proper decisions to stabilize the situation amidst the COVID-19. And of course, I'd like to focus on the role of the state in this process. Today, in November, whenever we are talking about the stable situation, we're talking about the support from the state. Of course, we do receive a support from the state, and this is something that is really crucial for the stability, as we received 21 million that is split amidst the 4 hospitals that we've allocated for countering the COVID risks. So the central government and the other people are working in a synergy to bring some results. Okay, could you think that Mariupol could be a model city for others in terms of supporting the gender equality? Can you tell us about the examples of sharing experience? Well, we are participating in different forums, and we try to work tightly with our partners. We have a range of offices like USAID office and other offices, and we cooperate with them on drafting a very important document, which is the strategy for 2030. So we are building a future by the sea coast. We're trying to use the experience from the United States, from European countries. We're trying to share and listen to the experience of Pittsburgh. We're trying to pay proper attention to the medical, to the health industry. We listened to Ksenia Sukhova and her recommendations. She was saying that we need to establish a modern hospital and establish a proper connection between the medical facilities and the educational facilities. We have to develop the medical science, as this would be an absolutely different industry. And whenever one will have a proper connection between the educational system and the hospitals, now then we'll have a success. And we'll try to provide similar support to other educational institutions like Donetsk Institute. So we'll create a proper cluster that will satisfy the needs for the region, and will support additional educational institutions as well. The other area is the innovative area that promotes startups. We've launched a few hubs. One of them is the IT hub, which is led by the women. And in this modern approach is really, we don't have that sort of a gender inequality. And anyone, either man or woman, can be a leader, can be a head of the enterprise. In some cases, we can be 50-50. In some cases, there could be other proportions, as we are using modern approaches to the business development. And today we're building a first IT school in Mariupol with the assistance of the European Investments Bank. We're trying to create a proper environment for Mariupol. We're trying to build a platform for innovative ideas and startups supported by the business, by the society, and the venture funds are developing currently. So we have a potential, we have a capability, we have funds to be able to invest. So we have successful projects. Thank you for the answers. So, colleagues, we're ready to hear to your answers. Vadim Bolchenko, can he hear me directly?
Yes, he can hear you. Mr. Vadim, I have another question. We've heard a lot about women being involved in the social economy. Tell us about the municipal committees. How many women lead such municipal committees? What's the ratio of men and women? And what committees were delegated to them? Are they only social as well? Well, the first thing I'd like to say that we haven't voted in for the committees. We've just collected the council together by the 70-30 ratio, 70 men, 30 women. The committees are now finalizing their regulations. There'll be 8 of them, 1 for education, 1 for healthcare, 1 for the environment, 1 for budgeting, 1 for business, 8 altogether. And I'm certain that the same quota ratio will be followed in the committee. I have no doubt whatsoever. Are there women candidates to the budget or land committees? And I'm asking women candidates. Yes, we do. We'll have an ethics committee, and we do have a women candidate who will chair the committee. It's Irina Dudina. She performed most successfully during the previous term and would like to continue doing so. As for the budgetary committee, we have a number of candidates, and we'll see who is voted in. We have both men and women, but the quota will be allocated proportionally amongst the 54 candidates, and will follow the same gender balance for the committee, including the budgeting committee. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Now, I have a few questions to our guests in the Kyiv studio. To Ms. Marina, Ms. Evgenia, in 2020, you showed incredible leadership. You led the party list to Kyiv Municipal Council. What inspired you to make this step, to lead the party to local elections? Indeed, it's a very responsible step, which I took consciously, seeing the way the achievements and the reforms are undermined that we worked so hard to implement for the 5 years. I couldn't stand aside, and it was very important to make the steps on the local level to preserve the key reforms in Ukraine that often the central government is failing to protect. One such reform is the Decentralization Reform, which has enabled us to run local elections across Ukraine successfully under the new laws containing a very clearly defined gender quota. We know that now the party will not have its list accepted if the principle 2+1 is not observed for every 5 candidates representing men and women. So currently we see that the new convocation of the Kyiv Municipal Council will include 39 women councillors, twice the number for the previous 8th convocation, and I'm certain they will play a key role in making the decisions for the Kyiv community. There are many challenges facing the Kyiv community in the context of the coronavirus pandemic and a number of other social and political challenges that need to be addressed, and I'm certain that women play a due role in tackling these challenges. Thank you. Ms. Evgenia, was it a difficult decision for you to lead the party to Kyiv municipality? I'll say it was a conscious and a natural decision for me. Since 2014, I've led an NGO. I'm the founder of the organization, and this organization deals with municipalities. Our focus is creating urban spaces, promoting communities in different parts of Ukraine. We are working with culture, education, doing other projects. So this came as a perfectly natural step to me, and I thought I wanted to try myself in local politics, and I've been thinking that for a year already. When you work in civil society sector and do a successful project, we implemented a project in Mariupol where we created a project and implemented it jointly with the Mariupol community. You realize that you need to create synergy with the local government to be able to achieve your goals. So it was important for me to pitch most successful and most important ideas from the civil society sector to the government and engage the community in running the city. You are talking about politics overall and your steps overall, but in the context of this topic, I'd like to ask you about the goals and objectives you're setting to promote a gender equality policy. Absolutely. I have the experience of designing public spaces with the community. At this design stage, we work as a single body assessing the public space in terms of gender sensitivity in the context of security, lighting, accessibility for different groups, and other matters that are gender-driven. I know what the city needs. The city of Kyiv, in particular, has a strategy that needs to be updated and reviewed for gender, because the current strategy does not reflect gender dimensions sufficiently. There's also a portrait of the city of Kyiv developed in 2018, which needs updating as well. We need to work closely with the issue of accessibility, with the issue of security for the city of Kyiv. To give you a very specific example, there are many underground crossings in Kyiv, and in terms of accessibility and in terms of security for women, first and foremost, these are key infrastructural objects that need to be addressed, and I know precisely how to handle them best. And my faction will support me in this initiative. We need to promote the projects and vote them in that will reflect the gender dimension in the city. Ms. Evgenia, I know you've done a lot to assure inclusivity, but also I'd like to ask you about gender sensitivity for this city. What are you going to do with your party, with your faction, and are you ready to work together to achieve the objectives? Without doubt, European solidarity is the political party which is consistent in advocating European principles, and gender equality is one such principle. If we mention the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, we have a very robust team of women for European Solidarity Party in the Ukrainian Parliament. We are the co-founders of the Ukrainian Women's Congress. We are attending today, including Masha Ivanova and Irina Herashchenko and Ivana Klimbush-Tsintsadze and many others of our position and a powerful bloc in the Verkhovna Rada. And this will be an example of a consensus solution in the 9th convocation of the Kyiv Municipal Council, when all the women, 39 women councillors who've joined the Kyiv Municipal Council will get together, and I'm certain we'll decide on the way ahead, on the way we're going to promote a gender policy. Well, it is a good reason why Kyiv acceded the European Charter for Equality of men and women in local life, and this charter underpins the principles, and I've even noted them down, about equality of men and women as a fundamental right, and promoting equal participation of women and men in decision-making for a democratic society, when the local and regional governments equally provide for the needs of men and women. But also I'd like to emphasize that we need to consider gender policy in a broader context, as a broader notion, and it states as a prohibition of discrimination based on gender, sex, ethnical or social origin, genetic or religious identity, and a number of other factors. For me, as a person who has dedicated a lot of my life to social matters, assisting children with a disability and socially vulnerable people, for me, this dimension and this broader take on the gender equality is very important. And you rightly noted that now we can look at the numbers and see that since the inclusive education was implemented in Ukraine, the number of children who were able to attend regular school has grown from 2,500 almost to 25,000. And that's just the destiny of boys and girls who can become full-fledged members of the Ukrainian society, but also it defined the destiny of their mothers, who will be able to care for their children, but also have a professional life. All the social improvements will affect men and women, and I can see that the gender policy is high on the agenda of your party, and it will be reviewed. So that's something I'd like to ask you about. The local government, what steps should it take in order to ensure and enhance gender sensitivity in this city? What are the first interventions that the municipality needs to do? Ms. Evgenia mentioned the underground crossing. What are your immediate interventions that you see? These are the steps that are continuously made. In the previous convocation, the team of the 8th convocation of Kyiv Municipal Council initiated 6 key social programs. With the start of the coronavirus pandemic, a unified coordination center was set up, providing financial assistance for 10 programs, and 700 million hryvnias were allocated to the fund. We will continue working in the same direction, helping the people, reaching out to women. We know that women have a key role to play in social life. They are at the forefront of the medical system as doctors, nurses, and that's the key area of social life now in the coronavirus pandemic context, and we are assisting them and helping them continuously, helping them to be equipped with the protective gear, the equipment and testing systems. But also we need to know that we haven't fully addressed the algorithm of how the teachers should teach children in the context of a pandemic when we find ourselves anticipating a stricter, a fuller lockdown day on day, while we haven't implemented a national level system for online tuition. And that will define the jobs for women who will be forced to care for their children if they study from home. And that would be a social support from the local governments to these mothers who will be forced to leave their jobs. Also, we need to talk of the long-suffering small and medium businesses who have been badly affected by the prohibition, like the weekend bans that cannot generate revenue to run their business and pay taxes to the local and central budgets. And the consequences will be longer lasting. So there are very many challenges that need addressing urgently, starting with the first session, with the first time we meet as the Kyiv Municipal Council. We'll be raising this issue and addressing them together. Ms. Evgenia, would you like to add? I support Ms. Marina, and I would just add that our short-time goals will be overcoming the consequences of lockdown and coronavirus infection. As we talk of gender equality, we will see women caring for children as single parents as the highest risk group, also women caring for elder family members, Roma women. These are the categories of women that need immediate attention. The city should also encourage the businesses to open childcare facilities like daycare centers that women could use. I know some malls have such facilities for kids. Often they're paid for, and perhaps municipality can negotiate with such malls to make them more socially acceptable. And how is that different to kindergartens? Well, kindergartens have to be open, and those are an alternative. Let's say a woman has a business meeting and needs a place to leave her child as an additional option. As for kindergartens, it's an extra burden on the budget, and that is a protected budgetary item, but we'll be talking about it, and perhaps we could lengthen the open hours so that the working hours could pick up their kids later, not 5 to 6 p.m., but 7 to 8 p.m. That's an extra burden on the budget, but that's something that we could discuss and help the city address the newly arising challenges. Thank you. We haven't heard from Lviv much. Ms. Antin, Mr. Antin, the floor is yours. We are not just keeping silent, but we're keenly following the discussion, and we are happy to jump in, and we'd like to thank you for very careful strategic planning of the gender policy in Ukraine. And we'll start the conversation with Mikhailo Dzymbaluk, who has unique experience. He's an MP of Ukraine, and he has an experience of working for executive branch of government, having worked as the head of the Oblast state administration in Ternopil and Lviv Oblast, having led the Oblast police department, well, to be precise, the department for the Ministry of Interior. So, Mr. Mikhailo, how do you see the current dynamics in the context of the latest local elections of 2020? Let me say that Ukraine has made a step forward towards gender equality. The deputies of the previous parliamentary convocations enacted the electoral code in the first reading, and this parliament has enacted the code as a major document, and this principle was followed in these local elections. It hasn't been easy, but every political party involved in the race had to abide by the gender quota as registered the candidates for the councillors. Currently, Lviv region has 37% representation of women in councils of all levels. Earlier, the ratio was 11 to 15%. Currently, the sessions are beginning for the newly elected Ryan-level council. Soon, there'll be a session of the Lviv Oblast Council, and we are very hopeful that perhaps a woman could be elected the chairwoman for the Lviv Oblast Council, and that's going to be setting a precedent in the history of independent Ukraine. That would be a very good omen. Working in the executive government, I had deputies, women, and they were different from men in that they were very efficient, very hardworking, but surely they also had to do the housework, caring for their families. And it so happened that currently I am reporting to two women, the leader of the faction, Yulia Tymoshenko, and the chairwoman of the committee, Ms. Tityakova. And I have to say it's more difficult to report to a woman than to lead a team with a lot of women on board. Overall, I'd say that given this impetus, in a few elections to local councils and to the national parliament, we won't even have any difficulty with a woman taking the top leadership position. I think we should be talking about a system of balances, and the legislation 4260 could turn around, and 40% of councillors of all levels will be men, and the majority will be women, because we need to remember another thing, the Ukrainian tradition, where a woman was a mother, the housemaker, where a woman is given a gift to continue life, and that's very important for our women to remember as they make a successful career. But when we talk about gender equality, in the local self-governance context, we should be saying that the local government should be creating prerequisites for women to successfully make a career and also be able to bring up their children. And that would be building maternity schools and kindergartens, and the demand in Lviv city and other cities and communities is high. We need to create prerequisites where children can stay in their school after hours so that their mothers could work successfully in public governance, in education, healthcare. When we talk about education and healthcare, we see the majority of women working there, but also successfully run their businesses. I'm certain that Ukraine will demonstrate good rates of improvement of gender equality, but it's equally important for women to embrace the situation where other women can be successful in all areas of life.
I would like to specify one aspect. We know that the most important is the power. We know that there is an inertia in the election process. We know that the regional centers in the west of Ukraine have mostly men who were elected. We know that really it's an issue of quotas, and we understand there are a lot of other challenges behind the specifics on among the local areas. So how do we solve this true reality? Well, I'm confident that the first and a very important step forward was made in terms of ensuring an equal participation of men and women in the electoral process. And so the leaders among the women can really take their opportunity and will become a powerful leaders not only in the territorial communities, but they may also become mayors for important cities with over 1 million of population. It's really a matter of time, and we have to take our partners as an example. We've heard the briefing of our partner in Canada. We've heard the briefings of others, other mayors and other parties. And I'm sure that the next elections to the territorial community and the local councils, they will show that we will have more leaders, women leaders, on powerful positions. Well, the fight for women's rights did not start yesterday. It started many years ago. We all remember the movement of suffragists. Now we can see a lot of practical steps. We can see the inertia institutions. We can see that the police has certain inertia. The oblasts and districts councils, they also have certain inertia. And the society is about to move forward as well, although it's not really fast in terms of becoming more and more democratic on issues of gender equality. But how did you manage to solve the issue of gender equality? Well, I wouldn't be very radical about answering this question because really it's part of our history that a lot was decided by the husbands in the families, but in the other there is one other aspect is that sometimes we have to choose whether we should appoint a woman as the manager or as the leader who will take the maturity leave, or whether we should select another person or an officer to that position. But really, whenever there is a team of men, that's good, but whenever there is a woman amidst them, they tend to make a better atmosphere inside that team, and they brought wisdom and cleverness to those kind of agencies and bodies. So it's really important to have women amongst us. even in those agencies that tend to be so masculine, like police forces, like special units, or certain positions that were closed for women, and now they're becoming open for women, and women are demonstrating with their own example that they can not only capable of serving on that position, but in some cases they're becoming even more effective than men on those positions. It's important to have men close by to support women, to offer them a chance to feel absolutely equal with the men. And addressing to women, I'd like to say that we, the men, we also need your help and assistance and your care in your participation in the family traditions, in the upbringing of the kids, and passing on the knowledge, the generational knowledge. This is something that is very important. This is something that where men would need the assistance of the women, because this is the God-trusted talent. Our studio from Kyiv would like to ask a question. Can Mr. Mikhailo, can he hear me directly? Because I've heard a number of comments regarding the fact that whenever women join the military teams or military groups, they make it softer, so to say. And this is the situation on the front lines. And besides, women tend to be very responsible for upbringing the kids. But I have another question. Your leader, the Yulia Tymoshenko, and have you seen a kind of a fact or a situation where Yulia Tymoshenko would be promoting more women to join politics? Was there sort of a situation like that? Well, thank you for this question. Indeed, many women follow the example of Yulia Tymoshenko by joining the regional political parties in Lviv. We have 45% women as the leaders of the local and regional political parties. And even before the passing of this law, Yulia Tymoshenko wanted to have that much of women participating in the political parties. And Yulia Tymoshenko always stood for those positions. And the fact that we have women as the Vice Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada, Olena Kondratyuk, she was also a member of the political party of Batkivshina, and she also supported the gender equality as being a member of our party. Thank you, Lviv. We'll get back to you. And I have a question to our experts in the Kyiv studio, and I guess I made two mistakes while introducing you. I told that you were the Vice Prime Minister until 2018, in fact 2019, and you have a very large experience. Back in 2017, 3 years ago, you were participating in the first Ukrainian Women's Congress, and you were the Vice Prime Minister. And after that, you've made a lot of efforts to ensure a policy of equal rights and possibilities as part of the decentralization process. And you focused a lot of efforts to the decentralization process. So what do you think? Have you managed to ensure a proper gender equality while implementing the regional strategies? Well, decentralization is the reform of equal opportunities, both for communities, both for men and women. But I'll give you a very specific example. Ms. Marina Tymoshenko, she was a leader in certain aspects like gender budgeting, allocating certain money, and it all provides for a change, for budgeting for kindergartens, and now the territorial communities can construct kindergartens at the ground floors of the multi-storied buildings, and all the local communities would now have a gender approach to the budgeting process. And this is the process that is being conducted right away, because we're doing that right now. And you can see what practical steps are currently made in order to make sure that the state, the economy, the community would need to relieve a lot of female resources, women's resources, as they would be able to spend less time and less resources on kids who would be able to go to kindergarten, to schools, and to use those resources for the benefit of Ukraine, because we understand there is a proper limitations, a closure of kindergartens and schools that also had an impact on implementing the rights of the women. And that is why the gender-based budgeting was one of our fundamental aspects that we've underlined so many times. And now, really, we've taken into consideration those possibilities. We started with this first Ukrainian Women's Congress, and a few decisions that were made by the cabinet. There has to be an equality while promoting to different positions, while selecting candidates, while motivating candidates. There was a large oppression to this process, but that was the mechanism that was used inside of the government. So our strategy provides for gender assessment of all legislative acts that are submitted for the consideration of the Committee of Ministers and the Verkhovna Rada. Secondly is to ensure we have a gender-based budgeting. Not only we need to talk about schools, kindergartens, things like that, but what is more important that when selecting candidates for different positions in local councils, in budgeting, in medical, health, and educational spheres, we have a lot of women already. So we need to make sure we have more women on the executive positions that would know their difficulties. We would also need to implement certain regional strategies, because we need to ensure the implementation of this gender-based budgeting approach. Now, we'd like to have more women selected on important positions, on key positions in the regions. We need to make sure that not only women would be thinking of this gender-based budgeting, but the men should be interested in this position as well. So this gender-oriented projects, they should be there, they should be implemented. We should have more educational institutions, we should have more inclusion of women. We should also implement a range of aspects to make sure we're properly integrating into the European community. We had an index of competitiveness of the regions and an index of development of human capital. Now we have to come up with the index of gender equality and to see how the gender equality, what impact does it have on the development of the human potential. Because any investor willing to join Ukraine, he wants to learn where is the access to the education, what is the access to the medical facilities, and then he tries to do the analysis and make up a decision for himself whether to invest or not. So whenever there will be more women capable of working, then that would promote the decision of the investor. And that should be the role of the Minister of Social Policy, who should be the driver of that process. Well, definitely that is the ministry you mentioned. It should have a coordinational center. And speaking of the decentralization, about the new Ukrainian school, and Mr. Borchenko mentioned that he has support of 21 million for the establishing of this hospital. Well, the government, under the presidentship of Mr. Poroshenko, they were forced to allocate funds over this project. So administrative services, new school, the security issues, these are absolutely important, especially in the east of Ukraine. And really, we have to take into consideration the issues of equal opportunities. And this is something that exists within the Coordinational Center for the Development of Communities, because this center currently says that the local law that we have that not only prescribes the delegated authorities but provides more human resources. Right now, not the land, not the infrastructure are the key resources, but the Ukrainians are the key resources, and they have to be provided with equal opportunities. So decentralization is the reform of equal opportunities, and the new electoral code allowed to have more women as MPs in local councils. And look at the numbers, really. We can see a real increase in the number of women for local councils. Unfortunately, there are not so many women among the mayors and top executives, but hopefully we have a lot of MPs on the central government, and they would be able to reinforce the situation for the better. And any steps we need to make sure to implement a proper policy of the gender equality. Well, hopefully we'll need more motivation among the men, and well, look at the money, the equal opportunities in gender budgeting, they allow to have more investments from the country, 20% more investments from UK, from France, from Germany. This is additional investment that we're talking about, and the number of men that we have on top positions is becoming less and less. But look at the work which is done. Look at the scope of work. More work is done by the women, really, and we have a lot of resources, and we understand the importance of those resources. And look, we have a large number of women who remain at home because of the lack of kindergartens, because of the lack of social support and benefits for them, and there is also the lack of extra school education that would allow that women to work for a full day and not a half a day. So it's not just a willingness, it's not just a simple step. It's a very important step because it will bring more money to the economy of Ukraine. So gender-based budgeting would allow more income for the territorial community.
Let's hear our cities. Is there a local understanding that this gender equality is about money? Let's talk with Lviv. On Lviv, you have the floor. Could you please ask your guests about their understanding that gender equality is one of the indicators for investors? Without doubt, I could say for my guests, they're highly educated people, and I'm sure they have a good understanding of the matter. And before I pass the floor, I would like to present Natalia Tabinska, who founded the agricultural cooperative Farming Family. I'd like her to start with the difficulties and challenges she had to overcome, because we know that working in the agricultural center is most daunting. And I would like our and I would like her to respond to the question from the key moderator. Good day. I'd like to welcome all the participants of the Congress. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to join in. I'd like to divert attention from the politics and strategic planning down to business and agriculture. I represent an agricultural cooperative which started this difficult year. It's been a difficult year for all the businesses, but if we talk about agriculture, and if we look at the start of the year, where the small and medium producers made the decision about their growing and cropping plans and sales at the end of the year, they usually make these decisions at random. And that's how this year started in spring, and all the sales channels broke down when the produce started ripening. This is a problem we sensed as producers this year. Despite this, I'd like to say on behalf of the consumers in Lviv, when we found ourselves in isolation, if we were used to consuming farming produce on the table, but now we had difficulty buying high-quality organic food. So taking the risks of the year, we tried to find the opportunities and grab at them. And the difficulty was that we managed finally to work together. Those who have tried working together know how difficult that is. Mentally, financially, logistically, how difficult it is to get people working together coming from different localities, but we've managed to do that. We talked online, we conducted a general assembly and brought together 28 agricultural producers of Lviv region, and 24 of them are active women producers. When I say producers, these are those making their finished produce that is ready for the consumer. So what has been the secret for our success was that we've implemented everything we've planned. We launched the delivery website with over 250 items of farming produce. We leased a distribution center premises, equipping it with refrigerating equipment and all the other facilities, and having organized delivery to the homes of Lviv residents. That's working effectively. What we need now from the municipality and others is to promote the cooperative and the opportunities it has to offer. Another thing I'd like to say is that we are talking about agricultural production and small and medium producers. If we take the statistics, then we'll see that 52% of the households are those supplying us with our daily foodstuffs. 52% of them are women, and they shoulder the burden of responsibility in the rural areas. They are responsible for the production, they are responsible for their homes and families, and that's something to be taken into consideration by those who have been brought into government. The leaders of the amalgamated territorial communities, those people know the people firsthand, you know the needs and the opportunities, and you can help them build your communities. There's much to be said about the potential areas for support. The programs that would pertain to women exclusively, I can't identify such for Lviv, but Lviv Oblast Administration, Lviv Oblast Council do have the development programs that you can start with. To a certain extent, they provide equal opportunities for men and women, and we've used of this opportunity as we founded our cooperative, we took a 5% loan, but for the producers, starting a business is a key prerequisite for success. There's also a support program helping recover some of the cost of equipment and giving a certain financial boost. We've made use of that. The only thing I could add why we've been successful, why we've made it, is because we were informed. We knew the available sources of funding, and that's something we should look at. We should look at the information field and how the information should be made available to those who need it. If I could ask you, what specific difficulties did you meet on your road? It's hard for me to fathom how you run an agribusiness. How do you start a cooperative? In this masculine and patriarchal world, we have certain stereotypes. How did you break through them? Well, if I take the question personally, I would rather talk myself as the chairwoman of the cooperative. I was elected for my organizational skill. I initiated the idea. I wanted to bring this cooperative into life. Now, a cooperative is when the decisions are made unanimously, and the difficulties we faced initially were about changing the mindset and deciding to work together. First, there were 40 producers, but some fell by the wayside, and it's one thing to work together, the other thing is to find the financial resources. So we worked it step by step, which required extensive planning and extended discussions amongst ourselves. And it's very important to liaise with the government. I'd like to boast another success, but it's also a task for the future. Before launching the delivery, we asked the Lviv Municipal Council, asking them to conduct a farming fair, a classical farming fair on the Rynek Square. And during the meeting, we decided we would do it. And from July to October, Lviv consumers could meet us face to face as we represented our produce personally. But these channels, these accesses have to be also done at the lower levels because the produce need direct sales channels to the consumers, and the consumers need to be aware of the healthy consumption patterns. Thank you, Natalia. I'm passing the floor to Kyiv moderator. Thank you, Lviv. We'll be back in your studio. Now we have Mariupol with us. Anna, the floor is yours. Thank you, dear colleagues, for the opportunity. We've been keenly following the discussion. We've heard a variety of opinions on the issue. Now we'd like to focus in depth on the work of businesswomen, because Mariupol has its own achievements to boast. Let's take Olga as an example. So you are a successful businesswoman from Mariupol. So what are your successes and what obstacles did you face on your way? Well, firstly, before I field your question, I'd like to go back to the question whether we in our city is aware of the importance of gender opportunities for investment opportunities. We are very well aware of it, and we know that women staying home as well as unemployed people in Mariupol are an extensive economic opportunity we'd like to ramp up. So we are working in two directions. In Mariupol, I am a businesswoman, but I also had the Center for the Support of Small and Medium Businesses. I'm a local councillor, so I take a very comprehensive look at these matters. We have to create prerequisites, and we do so in the city, to be able to talk about gender opportunities opportunities in here and equal opportunities for all people, all social groups resident in Mariupol. We've been evolving rapidly. We made a number of breakthroughs, and 5 years ago, Mariupol was perceived as a oppressive area, as we've been frankly told, that Mariupol is just a city between two production facilities. Now we are talked alongside with Lviv, and that's very satisfying. And we're saying Mariupol is a very different city altogether. The residents say that we feel as if we've moved to a European city with a lot of opportunities, education opportunities, childcare facilities, high-quality education in schools and universities, high-quality healthcare, global infrastructural achievements, a city with a lot of open public spaces, because if we talk about a modern European city, it should be a city for us to exercise our professional and personal ambitions, a city for work and recreation, and a city with an economically viable people and young people staying in their city. 70% of graduates used to leave Mariupol, but now this has changed around on its head, and now 70% of young people stay in Mariupol, and that's colossal potential for Mariupol. So when we talk about gender opportunities and growth potential for Mariupol, we could talk at length and spend an hour and a half discussing that, but we know we need to create enablers to enable these opportunities. The initiative have to be top-down as well as bottom-up. And that's not just about gender or women's leadership, it's about forming an active, robust, democratic society. That's why, given these case studies such as Pittsburgh, that used to have a mono-economy like Mariupol, that is not just about medicine and scientific clusters, but for the businesses to play an important role in diversifying the economy, in turning the city on its head and giving new face to Pittsburgh. Likewise, in Mariupol, we launched a unique oblast for Donetsk, a center for the support of small and medium businesses. And honestly, as I talk to our entrepreneurs, when I started my business 15 years ago, I have faced the same challenges that are relevant today. Lack of any information, to name one. Secondly, lack of access to knowledge. And thirdly, lack of access to finance. These are three important factors that we have focused on. Today, we currently inform our business community about the changes to do in business regulation, to do with business climate, financial opportunities out there. We learned from Lviv when we piloted a project. Now we have the Mariupol Entrepreneurship School. It's a unique project of a kind. It's not just a starter school for business community. We usually have 50-55% women entrepreneurs. There's no need for quota. We see a lot of initiative coming from women who seek a business education, who want to change their qualification and realize themselves, and we're giving them the tools to do so. And we are also following our entrepreneurs after the course. We created a business incubator and a business accelerator for those business people. We help them draw business plans. We help them look at the opportunities, at the financial and grant support programs, governmental programs. We talk about accessible programs 579, other financial tools. We have a financial support of up to 250,000 for starting a business or to support newly established businesses. We lead our business people by hand through their formative years, and after the summer school, the business entrepreneurs have applied to 8 donor support programs and 7 received their financial support. So we have 7 freshly minted businesses. It's about new revenues to the state budget, it's about a new job, and it's not just about business support at the times of crisis, but also also helping them create new jobs, develop their business in Mariupol, and it's very important to talk about it today. Is there sufficient support to women entrepreneurs from the local government, and how should the local governments and local businesses work together to cater for all the needs of the people? Honestly, when we talk about business support, we mean all groups. We work with women entrepreneurs. We coach them to apply to different programs meant for women entrepreneurs. In our center, we did the analysis and mapped the business niches for women entrepreneurs, and we bring them in, we give them the tools, and we want to support their emotional drive, and we give them mentoring and counselors. Once they register their business, it's very helpful in the initiative to create a center of that kind in this format, when we work more than a service, but as a business enabler. When we talk about women, let's be honest, the micro, small and medium businesses are the niches where women are mostly involved. When we help businessmen, we help women to grow and develop and grow professionally. Equally important, next year, we are thinking of overcoming the crisis, developing Mariupol, and we have a strategy for 2013, and we want to see a very different city in 10 years' time. So we have a business school for schools and universities, and we plan to teach 200 school and university students next year, and we're going to grow the number year on year, and in 10 years' time we'll have more than tools to give, but we'll see a different understanding of the paradigm for school leavers and university leavers. We are giving our young people a chance to live in a very different city with novel infrastructure, novel opportunities, and they are going to enter the adult life with the different adult values and European philosophy at heart. Thank you for having your say on this, colleagues. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. That was very inspirational. And I would like to represent another guest, Evgenia Bardak. And Evgenia has become an MP of the Ivano-Frankivsk City Council. And that was truly an uncovery of the possibilities available to her as she was participating in a former Ukrainian Women's Congress. Good afternoon. And 3 years ago, you were listening to the discussions about the equality of men's and women's, and now you already entered the political life. So what was your path? Indeed, being engaged with the Ukrainian Women's Congress for quite a while, I'm trying to talk to successful women, both locally from the Ivano-Frankivsk region and internationally, of course. And when I first met Olena Kondratyuk and the Ukrainian Women's Congress, it became curious for me to investigate the Ukrainian women movement in Transcarpathian regions, and I always thought that our organization is fairly conservative, but it's appeared to be quite the different, because Natalia Kombrynska, who was born in the Carpathian regions, she's a Ukrainian writer, and she was actively promoting the Ukrainians movement, starting from the Carpathian regions. And back in 1934, there was even a special meeting in the Carpathian regions. In fact, that was a congress of inactive women, and they were demonstrating their active position in Ukraine. And that's very good. And now, when I am being invited to this Ukrainian Women's Congress, I'd like to express words of gratitude to Olena Kondratyuk for actively developing this topic, for uncovering new levels for Ukrainians movement, as this creates a platform for us, a platform that unveils new capabilities for us, as we, the women, can use this platform to talk, to discuss certain matters, making sure that others would be able to hear us. And this is not only the conversation, but we have women representing large groups of other women in Ukraine, and I'm proud to be here, and because I can say that it was not only me who participated in the Ukrainian Women's Congress, but other women as well, and we were trying to help one another who represent small rural communities of the Carpathian regions and those who became my electorate, and including communities with less than 1,000 population. And it's great because we can see the prospects which is currently demonstrated using the platform of the Ukrainian Women's Congress. This is where you can find a successful women representing every sphere of the society. You can get inspired with their success. You can establish communication channels. You can search for mentors, which is absolutely important both in civic activity as well as in politics, which is truly important, as it's an important part of our life. You already joined the Ivano-Frankivsk City Council. Do you have any plans how to promote the gender equality in your city? Well, the Ukrainian Women's, after becoming an MP of the City Council, I've wrote a number of letters to establish communication with some of the women that were elected to the U.S. Congress and other women politicians representing different councils in Ukraine, and I'm trying to stay in touch with journalists, with activists, with other important women and active women, and that brings a lot of inspiration to me. And really a lot was provided to me. I've heard a lot from Olena Kondratyuk. And Ms. Evgenia, it might be that you haven't heard my question. I'll repeat that. So you were elected to the Ivano-Frankivsk City Council, and do you have any plans in promoting the gender equality in the region? Any practical steps you would like to introduce? Well, I'd like to add a small kind of a forward. I was running for this city council back in 2015. I got a fairly good result, but I was not elected as the member of the city council. Still, I remain to work in my electoral district, and I won. So I'm very grateful to the political party Batkivshina. I got the support from that political party for 5 years, and I managed, together with the members of my community, to establish more bridges, to repair roads, do a lot of things, something new, something that is not inherently related to the women and their education, but we've managed to achieve a lot. And I have a very good mentor, Vasily Hlady, who's the first deputy of the city council speaker, and he helped me to become a successful politician, because he helped me to accumulate the proper authority among the people, and that gave me a significant impetus to work actively as the MP, as the member of the city council. So mentorship is something that is really important, and this is absolutely important in the frames of the Ukrainian Women's Congress. I think everyone should use this Congress as a platform for searching for more mentorship, and really I'm trying to support the other women in my district, in my region, and when I have become a member of the city council, I will suggest my colleagues to initiate the establishment of interfractional group of MPs for equal opportunities. I mean, similar to the group that exists in the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and I hope that the establishment of such a group is in due time, really. So, thank you. Thank you, and I would like to wish you success in your journey, and I'd like to express words of gratitude to all the guests, all the experts and colleagues in Mariupol, in Lviv, and special words of thanks to our moderators, to Andorhova, to our moderator in Lviv, so thank you. And now I'd like to pass the floor to the co-founder of the Ukrainian Women's Congress, and back in 2017 she was one of the women MPs who promoted the idea of running the Ukrainian Women's Congress, the Svetlana Wojciechowska, the MP of the 8th Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada. So please, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, just a few minutes left for the Ukrainian Women's Congress, and I wanted to tell you that pandemics brought certain new challenges and certain new procedures in the process of our communication, but nevertheless, we felt your support. We felt the beating of your hearts, and pandemics, this difficult time has brought a lot of changes to economics, to family life, to social life, but nothing would be able to stop the team of the Ukrainian Women's Congress to fulfill its vision, that is the partnership, the mentorship, the mutual support, as well as actualization of any challenges and searching for ways to solve those challenges. We're grateful to all the speakers, to moderators, to the participants for their active involvement in the discussion over those 2 days that we've spent for the Ukrainian Women's Congress. We are grateful for the assistance of our partners who helped us to organize this event in the online mode. It's already the 4th Ukrainian Women Congress, which is becoming more and more active every year, and all the participants of the Ukrainian Women Congress really did a lot, and they're marking a considerable progress in equal rights for men and women in Ukraine. And in conclusion, as well as the summary and the declaration, the final summary of the declaration will be posted on the website. And I'd like to mark some of the challenges that we are facing in a parliament and civil organizations and things like that. And this is something that we will try to counter. We shall promote definitely the work related to the protection, both on the legal level and on political level, the protection to women in politics. We call upon the political parties to have more women in their pool of talents, so that they would not say that we were forced to comply with the election quotas, so that more women would be part of the professional team team of members of political parties. We need to join all the members of the politics, all the members of the leadership to ensure we have more investments, we have more development of economy, we have more women participating in those projects, and definitely we will continue the systematic work in the parliament and in the government in order to make sure that all matters related to the gender equality would be reflected in the policy. And I'd like to underline that under conditions of the pandemics, we have to protect the rights of the medical personnel, their social support, their conditions of work, as they are on the front lines. So please ensure a greater partnership, have proper cooperation and mutual support. I'm grateful to all the partners who assisted us in organizing the 4th Ukrainian Women's Congress. Thank you to all who stayed close to us, and special words of gratitude to the team of the Ukrainian Women's Congress, and special words of gratitude to all those who worked in this studio, who helped us to deliver our thoughts and messages, and special words of gratitude to Maria Ionova, to Olena Kondratyuk, as they are co-founders of this Congress. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby call the end of the Ukrainian Women Congress. Hopefully, there will be a time for more hugs in the offline. And hopefully, I will see you during the 5th Ukrainian Women's Congress. Thank you.